diagram, one line showed, viewed from front or rear, a dog with normal structure should stand with relatively straight columns of support from hips through stifles and hock joints, and from shoulder joints through elbows and pasterns. The toes face out very slightly for balance, much as a human stands, with the feet not quite parallel. But the tendency should not be exaggerated. The gait of any dog is influenced by natural laws that facilitate forward motion with minimum effort. This means that as speed increases, the limbs tend to converge to centralized support and minimize the shifting of weight from side to side. Going away, this great Pyrenees moves correctly with no leg interference in spite of his floppy dew claws. But coming toward us, he toes in a bit, a minor fault in view of his overall quality. Broad and deep-chested, the Bull Terrier has a wider footfall than many breeds, but the limbs still draw in slightly to offset body roll. This single-tracking Belgian sheepdog demonstrates the breed's unique tendency to move in a circle because of his herding instinct. Gait is related to the purpose for which different varieties of dogs were developed. So it isn't how much or how little the limbs converge that is important. It is knowing why it happens. Structure of the hindquarters is perhaps more readily understood than the front because the rear joints are easier to see and feel, whereas the bones of the foreassembly seem more deeply seated in muscles and the mechanics of movement more complex. One of the basic factors influencing front action is shape of the chest, against which the shoulders rest in a three-dimensional position. They slant up and back, they slant in toward the withers, and because they lie against the tapering portion of the rib cage, they face slightly inward, not parallel to the spine. Thus, movement is directed centrally as muscles draw the limbs toward a midline of travel. See how shoulder joint action is highlighted beneath the coat of this lovely collie, as strong hips and stifles contribute to smooth action in the rear. A dorsoventral view of a fox terrier galloping on a treadmill shows the shoulder blades gliding over the narrowing part of the chest. Notice how the ribs move back and forth with pull of the muscles, and how the heart has room to move within the chest cavity. Look closely at the good stance of this Samoyed, and the equally good stance of this German Shepherd. How a dog stands gives some indication of how he will move. As we have said previously, the pastern should be relatively straight when viewed from the front, with the middle toe slightly off-center for balance. As the dog moves and the limbs swing inward, normal flexion of the pasterns prevents interference with the supporting legs. And just before full extension, a slight rotation lets the feet land squarely, with the central toes taking the thrust as weight passes over the forelimbs. Watch the way this fine Samoyed places his feet. Posing a dog unnaturally with the central toes dead ahead by twisting the elbows out does the dog a disservice, because if he stood this way on his own, the feet would land on the outer pads and he would pin toe or toe in, like this. As a young dog, this ridgeback always followed when his mistress was horseback riding. But as he grew older, joint discomfort developed and he preferred to stay home. Unsound structure subjects joints to unease.